Hello everyone, Cacti and Carnivores here, and today I'm going to be doing another plant log. I know this is a late plant log, 2 weeks late. I skipped the one that was supposed to be uploaded 2 weeks ago. Again, just school stuff. Semester's finishing up, so gotta put extra attention to everything so I don't mess up on the finals and fail the classes and all that. So yeah, that's why I'm late. And yeah, quite a lot has changed. It's winter now, so you're gonna be seeing some pretty big changes for like everything, every temperate, subtemperate, subtropical. I'm guessing Christmas cacti are subtropical because they do need some sort of like seasonal change in order to indicate blooming. As opposed to like a totally tropical plant like an Nepenthes, which would just like continuously grow under the same conditions. But yeah, I'll have to look into that. So let's just get into everything. You can see, pretty obvious thing, all the Christmas cacti are flowering. I don't want to take too many shots of them because I'm going to be filming them all and doing a little kind of surprise video if you can't already guess. But just a quick preview of what's to come. They look spectacular. Two good flowers on this one. More to come, more to come. They don't always develop at the same time. Not only with different plants, but with different blooms. So that's kind of not too. It's not that bad, but it's like, I kind of wish they could all like come at full force. That'd be really nice. This one is confirmed to be pink, have pink blooms, and not red blooms, because as you can see, these blooms look a lot different from the red blooms of this one, and so I can't say that these are red. They're most likely pink, unless they do something completely weird and change color right before they open, which I doubt would happen. These ones, blooms haven't completely developed by any means, just sort of coming out. So that's that. And this one here, which is a clone of that one, a cutting, it's grown quite a bit, and it's got 3 nice flowers on it. This one's just barely about to open, but it will soon. And again, not going to film too much because they are going to be filming them in something else. And you can see that like they have sort of a pinkish purplish tint to them, and that's because in cooler temperatures during the winter, if it's like below 70 degrees, the white flowers will begin to show a purplish pinkish tint to them, which I'm not too big of a fan on. They still look pretty nonetheless, but it's still a little for me. It'd be nice to see them completely pink, but that's about that for them. The Nepenthes, new picture just opened. I believe if you were to check the last plant log, this was like just a little nub down here. A very nice picture, as normal for this plant. You can see each picture gets progressively bigger. So you can take a quick look here. See this first one that opened, that was different than the small ones that it had before. It's going to be kind of an off measurement, but about 3.5 inches or 23 centimeters. And then this one's about like almost 4.5, up to, wait, never mind, not 23 centimeters. Sorry, it is like 8 to 9 centimeters, and then this one's like 10. So they're gradually increasing, which is showing that they are maturing, or the plant is maturing at a constant rate. And yeah, it's just a solid, nice plant. I really love the pictures it puts out. Yeah, so that's that. So as you can see, I've had a little experimentation thing going on here. You can see that there's a fish tank in this little area here, and that's because I was thinking of trying to make this into like a terrarium area. I could hook up artificial lights of some kind, either LEDs or fluorescents, depending on space, time restrictions, and the kind of plants I'm growing. I'll kind of get into that later. And the tank will be for humidity, and if not, I can probably put some like plexiglass here. Maybe get a different tank. This one doesn't seem too good for like getting up and having to get into the plants and check up on them or adjust them or anything like that. So that might be a bit of a challenge, and this tank will probably not be used. But yeah, just a quick like experimentation. I was thinking of looking through specific plants and their similar characteristics in terms of growing conditions. I was thinking that I could grow both lowland nepenthes and woolly or Pediolaris drosera woolly sundews in the same tank, because they both like high heat, and while it's not it's not completely necessary for a woolly drosera to like high humidity like a lowland nepenthes, they do prefer it, so that would be that'd match up pretty well. I've read up online, people do the same sort of combination. It's not like insanely common, but I've seen it can be done well, and there's not going to be much of a interference with the care guides of both. So I'll look into that. Yeah, and that would be interesting. And if you could help me, maybe I was thinking of using fluorescent lights because they give off more heat, which would be good for raising the temperatures, especially during the winter, where it gets down to like 60 to 70, which is not too bad for both plants, but they certainly wouldn't do both types of plants, but they certainly wouldn't do well, or like very, very well. So yeah, that's just a quick little experiment there, just looking at space stuff. So if you could help me on like, hey, what I could do for this and that, that'd be fine. I don't expect it too much because I don't really get too many views. Kind of a tiny channel right now, so that's okay. But yeah, it's just an experiment. You can see that I moved the cacti inside. This is because it's the winter and they like to be completely bone dry. And right now during the winter it rains a lot. And I'll talk about that later again because it helps me grow, helps me collect a certain type of resource, if you know what I mean. Yeah, and they're doing as good as they are. They don't really like die off as much as like a dormant like Venus flytrap, but they do go through sort of a dormant stage where they kind of stop growing, like to be kept bone dry, and this is how you get them to flower and not be like spindly during the winter months where they continue to try and grow, but then they'll just kind of like, they won't get as much sunlight, so they'll grow kind of awkwardly, and stuff like that. So just the cacti are inside, all doing pretty well. Yeah, and there's an aloe also inside because it gets way too cold for them. So yeah, so that's been outside for a while. I haven't just picked that up. Sphagnum moss, not really gonna do an update on it. It's just growing at what it's like. There's nothing really new to see. It's just growing. The lights are working well, and it's doing pretty decently. Seeds again haven't grown a bit. Haven't sprouted at all. Kind of frustrating, but at this point I'm not really too like torn up about them. Like if they sprout, they sprout. If they don't, they don't. I'm okay with it. I believe they're, yeah, Drosera spatulata, so not exactly the rarest type of sundew. So that's that, as good as it is. Yeah, so that's pretty much everything up here. So now with that, all that out of the way, let's go outside. Alright, so we are outside. It's in December 9th, so it's in the middle of winter. And it's as cold as it will get here. I'm pretty sure about like 49 degrees Fahrenheit. Not really that cold, a very temperate, not temperate, sort of mild climate here. And you're probably wondering where all of my plants have gone. They just disappeared. It looks kind of funny if you don't already know, but they are in here, in this, under this area, and they're all dormant as they are, along with the Sarracenia hybrid I just unboxed like a couple days ago. The reason I have them inside and not in their containers, or not in their water trays over here, is because it's been raining a lot, and I don't want them to get all all soggy in the roots. They are bog plants and can take a lot of water without much concern, out like any sweat, really. But just with like the temperature and the fact that they're dormant, it's best to not have all that water there. So you can just see for a quick minute how dormant they are right now. It's almost crazy how quickly they just like, or not quickly, like how bad they look in the winter. For these typicals, the Walmart typicals, for some reason they're starting to get really good red coloration in their traps. It doesn't look too good because they're all malformed and half blackened, and it does look kind of awful, but still it's nice to see some of the late winter color come in, even if they are dormant. And you can see that a lot of the growth is resuming into that like ground hugging summer, late summer traps. And you can see that these the ones I called the Vinny, kind of made up cultivar name, I used to identify these very specific sort of type of Venus flytrap. The ones with the more sawtooth like edges I got from a garden store, but act very differently from a lot of my other plants in terms of growth patterns and all that. They've gone very, very, very dormant. I'm almost proud of them, to be honest, because they've been like kind of having a tough year. If you go back to my earlier plant logs, they were just all messed up. Like, they started out pretty good. They got kind of burnt. They resumed growth. They started putting out new divisions, and then they just completely like got fried as the summer went on, and now they're just as dormant as they are. So it's nice to see them just resume a consistent state of resting. And it just feels nice because they're finally doing what they're supposed to be doing. And even the little small one, if it can focus, is doing as good as it is. You can see a lot of the traps have died back, and it's gotten some red coloration in the traps, either from the more light it got during the early fall when it was still kind of growing, and I'm pretty sure it's in somewhat of a dormant phase. I did research, and very small Venus flytraps can be put outside for dormancy, especially in harsher winters. So I believe it's 2 plants. It's kind of very hard to see, but there's one growth point and like another one somewhere in there, if you can see. So about like 2 tiny plants. maybe 3, I'm not sure. So yeah, those 2 plants shouldn't have a problem. You'll see this one, this Walmart typical I isolated from these 2, hasn't seemed to gone into as like intensive a dormant stage. Still looking kind of miserable though. The traps are wonderful on it, though it's been putting out some good late fall traps. Seem to be going dormant a bit later than these guys. Same with the Maroon Monster. It is still somehow catching food. I believe this was like 3 days ago. This trap has remained closed for a while. But yeah, it's still been catching food. And it amazes me because this is seems to be a pretty nice cultivar. Bit hardier than the rest. Didn't seem to show much stress during the heat of the summer. So that's that. Here's the little Sarracenia mosaic, specific ID'd plant. And it's not looking dormant per se, but a lot of its traps have died back. And even if it doesn't look dormant, it can still probably be somewhat in a dormant stage. So it's looking good. The sphagnum moss with that came with this one is very different than the stuff I got for when I bought that New Zealand sphagnum stuff. So that's very interesting. And I wonder if this one is of higher or lower quality, or if it's just a different kind of stuff. Like maybe it's Canadian sphagnum moss instead of New Zealand, or I believe there were bogs in Wisconsin, but those don't give good sphagnum moss because they've been kind of mined out, over harvested per se, which kind of sucks. This one's been looking pretty dormant, I'd say. I'm debating whether or not to cut the leaves off because it is looking for dormancy, because they do put out new growth in the spring that can be overshadowed by dried up growth. And I've read that cutting it, even if it's live, a majority of the dying blackened tissue can help get more light to the developing growth and lead to a healthier plant in the spring and summer. But right now I'll just leave it alone until it begins to resume growth. And I'll actually do that with all these plants. When early spring comes around, they start growing. I'm going to be cropping off some of all that dead growth, and it's very satisfying for me, which is why I like to save up a large amount of dead growth to cut it all off. And yeah, it'll just be the future. So those are all the dormant plants. And before we end this video, I just want to take a look at all the distilled or rainwater I've been collecting over the days of winter. This is bought and distilled water. These two were rainwater collected from the trays of my plants when they were the trays were still out and the water was like flushing through the tray, so it was kind of impure. But I don't think it should bother them at all if I water them with this. So I'm holding on to that. Then I cleaned the trays out, and I got these 3 2-liter bottles and this, I believe, half-gallon of more rainwater. So yeah, I won't need to buy distilled water for like several months, even when it gets into the really warm summer periods where I'll have to water a lot. So that's cool. Being rather resourceful this year. Yeah, so all my plants going through some stuff. Very nice to see them. Even in dormancy, doesn't really bother me that much. Because it's just like their natural cycle. So yeah, that's everything. Expect more videos out in the future. Again, I have I'm gonna put together a little compilation with my Christmas cacti flowers, so look forward to that in the future. Goodbye.